A security blanket. A security blanket is actually a blanket that when you're younger you look at and you have an illusion that it will protect you from all harm once you snuggle up with the blanket. It's somewhat of a mental attachment and a mental illusion of protection. A house is a shelter. It does protect you from the elements. However, most people don't spend most of their time in their house. They're mostly at work or out in society, even at Starbucks, whatever. Most people don't spend most of their time in their house. However, it's good to know in the back of your mind that if you got sick, decapacitated, or whatever, that you do have that security blanket, knowing that in your mind you have a place that you can go back to seek refuge. And so living on the road in your car, van, or RV, you don't have a huge security blanket, if any. Your vehicle is your house, but if you need to get off the road for an extended period of time, you're not going to be able to do it in most instances in a car or van. If you have an RV, you can certainly go to an RV park and use that as a security blanket. If you're in a car and van, you could go to a campground, whether it's using the 1,000 Trails Camping Pass or something else, and see how long you can stay at that campground. But to live in your car or van for an extended period of time and be sick or ill or have a major issue in your life, there's not much security. So I do agree that for many instances, a home, apartment, house, or condo, whatever, it's a little bit of an illusion of a security blanket that most people never really utilize. It's a mental thing. However, where owning something or renting something and having a place to go back to where it does come as an actual security blanket is when you really, if you had if you had a terrible diagnosis, if you really got sick and you need to be at home or even have someone come take care of you at home, the reality of doing that on a campground is not really sustainable. Okay, so you'd really have to look at what do you risk living full time on the road in your car, van, or RV. You risk a level of security. Okay, as far as, again, if you had a major issue in your life circumstance that you had to get off the road and you don't have a house, apartment, etc. What could you do if you live in your car, van, or RV and you do have a major issue and you need some security? You need that security blanket in your life. Well, like I say, if you're in an RV, you're going to go to an RV park, because if you're in an RV, you should, and I do recommend, if you're going to buy an RV, buy a fully self-contained RV, meaning that it has a shower, a kitchenette, and a living quarters. Even if it's very small, now at this point in my nomadic life, 3 years living on the road full-time out of my car, if I do get an RV, for me, one of the criteria that I've become aware of that I wasn't when I started is, if you buy an RV, in my opinion, you want something you can stand up in, has a shower, kitchenette, and a living quarters, so sleeping quarters. Why? Because you want that full capacity of a tiny home. Why? Because look, if you really need to get off the road, if you have a major unforeseen life circumstance, you want to be fully self-contained. You don't want to, God forbid, have a broken leg and be at a campground and need to go walk to the common showers or common bathroom. You want to be fully self-contained within that unit. So for the RVers, that's what you do. You bunker down at an RV park or campground for several months, okay, and you're fully self-contained. For those living in a van or car, and I have met some people that had like a serious car accident, they had to get off the road, you're going to have a few options as a security blanket. Number one is you can do a long-term stay at a hotel, but for many instances, if you go past 2 weeks, it's not cost effective. And you'd be probably better off looking at an Airbnb short-term rental, month to month, something like that. But the problem with that, even though that's an option as a security blanket, the problem with that is that if, God forbid, again, you break your leg or even something worse, you have like a serious illness, is that, do you really, when you're going through a serious trauma, do you really want to do you really either have the capacity, or do you want to go through the aggravation of working with someone, going online, figuring out a rental situation, giving first and last deposit? You probably want to do a walkthrough of the apartment or house that you're going to rent before you just rent it. And, that's going to take a few days to a few weeks to cement where you're going to stay. And I just don't think you'd have that luxury, and I don't think it would be easy when you're in an emergency situation. So look, when you're a child, a security blanket is somewhat of an illusion because you live with your parents and they are in charge of taking care of you, okay? However, when you're an adult, you don't have that luxury of your parents taking care of you, and you may even be in a position where you're taking care of your parents at some point. So what do you risk living on the road full time? You risk, if there's a serious life tragedy, emergency, health issue, etc., that you don't have the level of security that most of society have if they rent an apartment or if they own a house. And it's a reality that you need to have a contingency plan for. Because I do agree that a security blanket, the mindset and what it means, is a little bit of an illusion. And the majority of people, the majority of the time, do not really need a security blanket with regards to the shelter that we're speaking about in this video. However, stuff happens in life, and there's always going to be a percentage of times that you're going to need that true security. And so just give thought, okay? I always say, like I've mentioned in my videos, and I give thought now, 3 years living full-time on the road, and that's why I do look at a home base or I look at different options to see, as I continue to get older, I'm still relatively young, but as I continue to get older and I go longer in this lifestyle, I look at two things, and this is what you should look at if you're going to be a nomad. Number one is an exit strategy. If you get to the point where you can no longer be full-time on the road, you can't drive, you don't want to drive, whatever, you need to know what's your exit strategy, okay? Because living full-time on the road as a retiree is not the reality for most people, for really anyone, eventually, okay? Number two is, in addition to your exit strategy, you also need a contingency plan for a short-term or long-term disability or injury that's going to keep you off the road for an extended period of time. So you need to have exit strategy for your eventual old age, and you need to have a contingency plan for an emergency that would get you off the road for an extended period of time. Now, I have heard of something called the Escapees in Texas. It's a Nomad group membership that I think you can join, and like same thing, like, they work with mailing, and they also, I think there's a place that you could even retire at one of their campgrounds, but you'd have to look into that. I don't want to speak misinformed, but I want to give this video to spark something in your mind with regards to the security and lack thereof when you live full-time on the road. And it's one of the trade-offs you make. We make trade-offs in life. You don't want to pay rent, you don't want to pay utility bills, you want the adventure of the nomadic life. That's great, that's a pro. The con is you don't have the stability and you don't have the security of a house or an apartment. That's the con. There's pros and cons to everything. You got to evaluate and accept the level of risk that you are taking, because nothing is perfect and stuff happens. So hopefully this video helped you. If it did, I appreciate if you click the thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not. Check out my playlist of the nomadic life and my Patreon, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace and love.